Today is Sunday, Chof Aleph Kislev Tovshin Ayin Dalet. We are in the Mamar Podoh Besholom of Yutas Kislev Tovshin Yud Beis in Teres Menachem Sefer HaMamorim Tovshin Yud Aleph Tovshin Yud Beis, and we are on page Kuf Pei Aleph. We are in the second paragraph of Ois Zayin, V'zeu Gam Hadiyuk. So the Rebbe is explaining the idea of Podoh Besholom Nafshi, the idea of being redeemed peacefully in Avodas Hashem, in man's service of Hashem. In the three areas of Torah, Gemilas Chasadim, and Tefillah. In Torah, the Rebbe explained that the idea of Sholem in Torah, peace in Torah, is the part of Torah which is Sholem. That's Pnimiyas HaTorah. It's Sholem. Torah itself is Sholem, but within Torah itself, you also have Sholem within Sholem, so to speak, and that is Pnimiyas HaTorah. Gemilas Chasadim is also the idea of Sholem, the Rebbe explained. Why? Because unlike Tzedakah, as the Gemara says, one of the differences between Tzedakah and Gemilas Chasadim is that Tzedakah, charity, is for the poor, you give to the poor, whereas Gemilas Chasadim is Bein La'ashirim, Bein Lanim, Bein La'ashirim, it's both for the poor and for the rich. In Avodas Hashem, that means that even if a person is not lacking anything, he asks, like Moshe Rabbeinu said, when he came to daven to Hashem, Tefillah LaMoshe, the prayer for the rich. Prayer means praying for something that you're lacking. So a rich man who is lacking nothing, somebody that's rich in the true sense of the word, which means that he lacks absolutely nothing. In Avodas Hashem, it means, the Rebbe doesn't explain it here so much, but in other Mamarim he explains that he has not only Giluyim, but he has also the Etzem, not only Mamar Podoh Besholom, not only the Giluyim of Seviv Kalamin, but also the presence of the very essence of Hashem. Nevertheless, there's still the idea of prayer because he prays for others. That's the idea of Bein La'ani and Bein La'ashirim.
Is there an aspect of him praying that they should continue not to need anything? That his situation?
You mean?
He's still praying for himself. It's like tzaddik in pelts, maybe. He's thankful. He's got what he's got, but he's still praying that he should never not have.
You mean prevention, praying, preventing him. I hear what you're saying. The Rebbe is more focusing here on the inyan ruchni, the spiritual aspect of it, right? I mean, Al Pi Halacha, there's a difference between the biblical obligation to daven and the rabbinic obligation to daven. I think according to some days, according to certain halachic opinions, prayer is only when you need. So if somebody doesn't need, you have no obligation to pray. On the other hand, there's also the idea of prayer, even if you don't need that at that moment. But the Pnimiyas Yom is the idea of prayer, which is the idea of connecting to Hashem. Morning, right? But in this context, the Rebbe is focusing on the idea of prayer in not simply in the context of what prayer is. Prayer is that you ask for something that you need. So if you don't need, what are you praying for?
Why can't you be praying for being thankful? Why is praying only a request for a request?
Strictly speaking, when we speak Shemona Esrei, when we talk about davening, Shemona Esrei, it's bakoshas tzorchov, asking for your needs. Yes, you're right. There is davening HaShabbos, for example, or Yom Tov, where we don't ask for our needs. We're not allowed. In fact, we're not allowed to. Kol malach chasuyo, right? But in the context of when you say Tefillah LaMoshe, the Rebbe explains over here, he was asking the Eibishter for something. So the Eibishter said, what's betzdu? Yes, you're right. There are other forms of prayer, which is the morning, which is the idea of connecting to the Eibishter, or thanking the Eibishter, or praising the Eibishter. But Tefillah the Shemona Esra is actually the 18 brachas. That's what constitutes davening. I mean, everything that we say in the run-up to that is as a preparation, the context, to frame it, and so on and so forth. Al-Kapanim. So what's the idea of davening, of Gemilas Chasodim, in this context? It's interesting how the Rebbe connects the two. Is that you daven, you ask for someone else, not for yourself. Medina Achas, Medina Plains, you have a certain country that's yours and it's destroyed. Decree that it should be rebuilt. Page Kofei Aleph. וזהו גם הדיוק בין פודו בשלום שצריך לי עסק בגמילות חסדים דווקא ולא צדקה. This is also the choice, the accurate choice, the specific choice of language. When the Chazal say that Podoh Besholom in the context of gemilas chasadim, of acts of kindness, the Chazal choose, our sages choose the word, the phrase gemilas chasadim, acts of kindness, rather than what? Tzedakah, charity. Why? Because Hainu, this means that there needs to be those acts that serving Hashem in the context in the area of Gemilas Chasadim, which is associated not only to the poor, but rather avodah serving Hashem, such an avodah Hashem, which is connected both to the poor and to the rich. What's the meaning of this? Says the Rebbe, the kshem sha'avodah nidreshes mashirim. He shegamim lechasel ha'me'uma mikol mokim es atzmam. As long as he's a chavekling b'shvil azulas, just like what is demanded of the rich, the avodah Hashem that's demanded of the rich is that even if they are lacking nothing, nevertheless they should set themselves aside for the benefit of the other individual, of someone else. K'mei kain, the Rebbe says over here. The Rebbe teaches, what's the pshat bein lani and bein lashirim? It's not. The Rebbe says it's not only that it means that it's for the poor and for the rich. He means to say that the avodah of the rich is also, the anim also have the avodah of the rich. The anim bein lani and bein lashirim, that this type of avodah Hashem is also the domain of the poor. So the poor also have this nekuda of what? Of serving Hashem in a rich man's way. What's the pshat? So the Rebbe explains. So to the poor can come to this mode of serving Hashem, that his request of Hashem should not be for what he's lacking, although he is aware of how great his poverty is, how impoverished he is, that he's lacking on abundance of things, so he sets that aside. But he sets that aside and he asks for this destroyed, desolate country which is Hashem's, and he asks Hashem, decree that it should be rebuilt. So even the poor have this avodah of what? Of the rich. How is that possible? How can a poor man serve Hashem in the mode of a rich man's avodah Hashem? That is accomplished, says the Rebbe. This is accomplished. This comes about through the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu davens, through the davening of Moshe Rabbeinu, through the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is the prayer of the rich. What did Moshe Rabbeinu accomplish through this prayer? Not only did he daven, did he open the way for the rich to daven, meaning to say that you daven for someone else, only in the rich man's direction, but through Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer, through Tefillah Moshe, this opened up the channel, this opened up the Vashvil, and the pathway for such a mode of serving Hashem, also by the poor. So Tefillah Moshe, which is the Tefillah of an Oshir, of the rich man, opened the way for the Oni also to be able to daven like a rich man. To ask not for himself, but to ask for someone else, for the other. To set himself aside and to be concerned for someone else. This is a very interesting pshat that Rebbe says over here. According to this, we'll also understand the choice of the Gemara's language. That Gemilas Chasadim bein lanim bein lashirim. The Gemara says that there are three things in which tzedakah and charity and gemilas chasadim differ. Charity and acts of kindness differ in 3 areas, if you remember. And one of the things that the Gemara enumerates is what? That gemilas chasadim is bein la'aniyim, bein la'ashirim. That tzedakah is both for the poor and for the rich. I'm sorry, gemilas chasadim is both for the poor and for the rich, whereas tzedakah is only for the poor. So the Rebbe says, when you say gemilas chasadim is both for the poor and for the rich, it's not that only that it means that the acts of kindness can be bestowed on the poor and on the rich, but rather the acts of kindness are both for the poor and for the rich to perform, not as recipients, but rather as the contributors. The Lechura, very interesting question the Rebbe says. The Lechura Havale Lememar, it would seem that the Gemara should have said that charity is for the poor and acts of kindness is for the rich. Why does he say that gemilas chasadim, acts of kindness, are both for the poor and for the rich equally? Technically speaking, I mean, that's ayin zayin. We have to analyze this question. If I mean, you would think that, you know, gemilas chasadim is for the poor, both for the poor to be bestowed on the poor and on the rich equally, right?
Why can't the poor do acts of kindness?
It's not only what the Rebbe is trying to emphasize. That's not only that the poor can bestow acts of kindness, but the poor have an obligation. You would think that the rich, right? In other words, the simple definition of the Gemara is in terms of recipients. We talk about the act. There's the act of tzedakah, charity. Then there's the act of gemilas chasadim, bestowing kindness. To whom are these acts relevant? A rich man doesn't need charity. He has what he needs. So but it does happen that a rich man needs an act of kindness, whether it is help, gufay, or so on and so forth, right? The Rebbe is over here turning it around. He's talking not as the recipient, but rather as the actor, as the one that does the act. Right? So what the Rebbe is saying is that gemilas chasadim, acts of kindness, is in the domain not only of the rich but also of the poor. That the poor also have to do acts of kindness. This is the Rebbe is turning. It's not the Pirush HaPashut of the Gemara. The Rebbe is turning it around in order to emphasize the inner definition of what the Rebbe is explaining in the Maimon in terms of serving Hashem in these 3 areas. That you would think that a poor man, his avodas Hashem, because he's poor, is restricted to the confines of how a poor man serves Hashem. Says the Rebbe, no. That Moshe Rabbeinu, through his tefillah, opened the channel that everybody has a shaykhis, and therefore an obligation is connected to what? To serving Hashem, even in the rich man's mode. Meaning to say that what? As the Rebbe explains. What does it mean that gemilas chasadim, acts of kindness, are both for the poor and for the rich? Who says the Rebbe explains? That also by the poor, even though the poor man what? When he davens, so to speak, right? So what's he asking for inherently? The natural thing is for him to ask for himself. Says the Rebbe, no. In addition to that, he also needs to have the avodas Hashem of Tfilas Osher. So everybody is rich. Everybody has that mode of serving Hashem in the rich man's way. Hainu, you can think to yourself, you were talking about self-confidence a few shiurim ago, you asked the question. So the Rebbe says like this, even though the person knows his lackings, his deficiencies, so you can think to yourself, who am I to go into daven to the Eibishter and ask for him, there's a tzara that you didn't have, or a problem that somebody else has. Who am I to come and ask for somebody else? That's the domain of Rebbes, that's the domain of Jewish leaders, that's the domain of Moshe Rabbeinu's, right? Who am I? It's sufficient if I come to Hashem and I ask Him with humility that He should give me my little needs, so to speak, right? Who am I to go in to ask for Klal Yisrael or for something that somebody else is missing? That somebody else is like, he says, no, that even though a person knows his deficiencies, he doesn't look at this. To ask only for himself, say, Hashem, I know that I'm deficient, please help me to be Visadaf. So the Rebbe says the person doesn't look at that. But rather the person asks for the Medina Shalcha that country of Hashem's country, Olam HaTohu, as the Rebbe explained it. In other words, a person asks that those things that are lacking in, say, the Nishtalshalos, those things that are lacking in the Shleimus of the totality of creation, everybody has that ability and that obligation to what? To ask and to pray and to work to bring that about, which is the idea of Tfilas Asher. Oisches. So this is, so far, the Rebbe explained the idea of Sholem in what? In Torah and in Gemilas Chasadim. Now we have one more thing. So too it is also in connection to the manner of serving Hashem through prayer with the community. Which is the third aspect, which is mentioned in the above mentioned saying of our sages. On what? On the pasuk of Podoh Besholom. What is the idea of mispal matzibur? As is explained in the Mamarim of Chassidus, in the explanation of that saying of our sages, which the Alter Rebbe brings in Perek Mamalef and Tanya, that a person should never extract himself, never remove himself from the public, from the community. This is as a result of what? Of the special quality that the tzibur, that the community has. What does that mean? The Alter Rebbe in Tanya in Perek Mamalef talks about Yiras Hashem and Kabbalah Soil at the highest level, and he explains how a person needs to have, how it's imperative to have Yiras Hashem and so on and so forth. But then the Alter Rebbe says, not everybody is up to this madrege. The Alter Rebbe says, even though a person is not up to that level, he shouldn't remove himself and extract himself from the klal, from the community, and he should act with Kabbalah Soil and with Yiras Hashem, even though he's not up to that level. So the Rebbe explains, this is also the special quality that davening b'tzibur has with the community. What's the Maila? As the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, concerning which it says, who is like the Eibishter, who listens to us anytime we call him. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, how do we know that the decree upon a community, even though it was sealed, could be undone, could be torn up? Right? So the Gemara says, how do we know? Because it says in the pasuk, who is like Hashem, who answers us anytime we turn to him. Meaning to say that even if the Gzeira, the decree, has been sealed, but if we turn and daven to Hashem, b'tzibur, right? If it's a communal davening, then it has the power to tear up the decree. So the Gemara says, but there's another pasuk that says, Dirshu havaya b'motzik ra'u b'yosikarev. Seek Hashem when he is present. Call to him when he's close. So we see that it's not always. You need certain conditions. What? That when he's present or when he's close. Says the Gemara, when do we say that you can turn to Hashem and he always answers the prayer? That's when there's a communal prayer. The prayer of an individual, there are times when Hashem is closer and a person can dive into Hashem and be answered even as an individual. When is that? When is Hashem close to the Yochid, to the individual, and answers his prayers? When is that? This is in the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. That what? That the power, the prayer of a Yochid, of the individual, in the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, in the 10 days of returning between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, has the same power as the Tfilas HaTzibur, the public davening of the whole year. V'nimtza. What comes out from this? What do we see from this Gemara? She'pe'ulas Tfilas HaTzibur b'meshach kol hashana hi k'mei b'aseres yemei tshuva. That the effect of the communal davening during the entire year, during the course of the year, is as powerful as the individual's davening during Aseres Yemei Tshuva. V'hinei, Yodua, it's known, What happens? Why is Aseres Metshuva so special? Because at that time, it's the time when the luminary comes close to the spark. So the Rebbe explains this. What does that mean? V'hainu. It's not that the spark, comes close to the luminary. No, it's the other way around. Rather, it's the luminary, Hashem, that comes close to the spark, to us, to the neshamas, to the Jews, the neshamas of the Yidden. What's the difference? What is the difference between the luminary coming close to the spark, or the spark coming close to the luminary? It would seem to be the same nekuda. Says the Rebbe, no, there's a difference. When the closeness is on behalf of the spark, right? Then there's separation, there's differences between one spark and another spark. One neshama is at a higher level, another neshama is at a lower level. So then what happens? Even though the spark becomes close to the luminary, one spark becomes close to the luminary in a closer way, one spark becomes close to the luminary in a more distant way. There's differences. However, says the Rebbe, when it is the luminary that comes close, specifically the luminary. What does it mean, moir? The difference between moir and oir is the luminary is the source of the light, which means to say the etzem. We're not talking about revelations, manifestations of Hashem. We're talking about the very essence of Hashem. That's what happens in Aseres Metshuva. So when the very essence comes close, we're not talking about revelations and manifestations of Hashem, but rather what? Hashem Himself. Then there is no limitation. To say that he manifests himself and is drawn down into this level and not into another level. Why? Because from the perspective of the essence of the luminary himself, there are no differences. And he is drawn and he is found everywhere equally. So as a result of the luminary coming close to the spark, then what happens? It refines. What happens is the result is that also those sparks of holiness, those divine energies, which are so concealed and so covered, that their light has become darkened. If you remember, we learned earlier in the Maimer that there are such nitzutzes kedusha, divine sparks of energy that have fallen so far and so low that they are very, very concealed and very covered, to the extent of what? That they almost are, their light has become darkened, right? So when the luminary comes close to the nitzutz, when Hashem makes His presence felt, His essence felt, also those nitzutzes kedusha become refined and lifted. Because before the very essence of Hashem, darkness has no effect. When Hashem becomes present, everything automatically is drawn and lifted and refined. Even the lowest, even those things that have fallen so low. From this we also understand concerning this inyan, this idea of Podoh Besholom being redeemed in peace, that when what is revealed are revelations, manifestations of Hashem, right? Not the very essence. Then the opposing side has some relevance. Why? There's a debate. There's Giluyim, there's revelation, and there are differences. Greater revelation, less revelation, and so on and so forth. Then it's like two sides. Even when one is strong and the other is weak, but nevertheless, there is the possibility for there to be a battle, a war between them. Okay, one side is stronger. The Giluyim Kedusha is stronger. But the opposite of Kedusha has some place. Even when he is victorious in the war, it's possible that after some time passes, the other side should be reawakened. And the battle should be reignited. But when what happens is the luminary comes close, which means the very essence of Hashem is revealed, not Giluyim, not manifestations, but the very essence of Hashem, then so far as the luminary himself is concerned, from the perspective of the luminary is such a phenomenon that it doesn't give any room for an opposing side at all. V'gam ha'oyev mishapech le'oyev. And also the enemy is transformed into a friend. V'lochein, and therefore, not only that, ein lachshish ma'yeh lachas, there's nothing to be concerned what's going to be later on. That it might be reawakened and the battle might start again. No. Why? Because all we have here is a phenomenon of good, of positivity, of kedusha. Says the Rebbe, what's the result? That as a result of the luminary coming close to the sparks, to the nitzos, to the neshamis, what comes about is this redemption in peace in its ultimate state of wholesomeness and completeness. So this is the idea of Podoh Besholom in Torah, in Gemilas Chasodim, U'mispalel Matzibur. That what? That we're talking about such a type of Avodas Hashem in this in this relationship, in this interactive relationship that we have with Hashem, that we awaken within ourselves such aspects of Avodah which are connected to our essence, to the essence of our being, which in turn awakens the very essence of Hashem. And the Avodas Hashem is in such a way that all those negative aspects don't have any room lechatchila. And even though, to begin with, this is an Avodah, a way of serving Hashem which is on the surface shaykh to tzaddikim, it's not a normal, usual way of serving Hashem. But as the Rebbe said, through the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu, Tefillah Moshe, right? Through the fact that the Moshe Rabbeinu, in those days, and the Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, opens the way for serving Hashem in this way. That's the way they serve Hashem, and we have a shaykhus, we have an association with them. That also opens the way for us to be able to serve Hashem, at least in some form, on that same basis. Continue mitzvah tomorrow, and hopefully we'll finish the Ma'or.